Thank you. So you're an expert on interpretation of drawings, and you have written a brilliant book about the interpretation of the drawings of patients. So tell us about all these things and your voyage and your work, the Jungian approach to spontaneous drawing. Yes, that's great. Hmm.
Called The Window on the Soul, because the background of spontaneous drawing is, of course, the structure and dynamics of Jung's psychology. That's what it's based on. So as there's an anatomy and physiology in the body, there is a structure in the psyche and there's a dynamic in the psyche. So that's the equivalent. Jung's the only one who ever described that, actually. What's my book about? It's about the background of the psyche. It's about the structure and dynamics that you find in spontaneous drawing. A statement in drawings, a vertical drawing is a statement. And that is a vertical drawing, it's a statement. And a drawing on a horizontal plane is descriptive of a process. A process. That would be a horizontal plane, descriptive of a process. So we can get either affirmations, statements, or we can get insight into a process in the psyche. I ask people to draw spontaneously so that they can come into contact with what the unconscious in themselves wants to reveal. And they inevitably do. Sometimes it's very simple, draw me a tree. And sometimes it's more complex. Draw me your family as animals. Drawing the family as animals contacts with the concept of totemism. And totemism, of course, is linked to our basic fundamental instinct. So yes, we can go deeper and deeper and deeper through symbolism and anthropological concepts like totemism, like rites of passage, like initiation. So that's basically what it's about. It's about contacting the psyche. It's about activating something deeper in the psyche. It's about bringing the contents of the unconscious to consciousness. So when we do that, when we bring the contents of unconscious themes to consciousness, we can carry them further with active imagination. What Jung does promise is that this is where the what he calls the transcendent function lies. And the transcendent function is about transformation. So contacting the unconscious with a conscious ego activates through instinct a process in the psyche, and that's a very important aspect. And the process in the psyche, once it's activated, once it's in movement, it follows its own natural flow.
Yes, Carl Gustav Jung says analysis is an encounter between two people in terms of total psychic contact. So, and this total psychic contact encounter brings transformation. And do you have a total psychic contact with your analysans with the help of dreams and drawings and all the stories of life that they tell you and so on?
Yes, well, we both dive into the sphere of the unconscious, whether it's through dreams, drawings, or sand therapy. So we're two together in one sphere. And the analyst is also often the alter ego, because the analyst is supposed to be the one who recognizes what's going on in the psyche. The analysand, not necessarily, but little by little, it's a training, and they do become far more perceptive and do understand what's going on in their own psyches. And that's the aim, is that they become independent, they become analysts of themselves. But at the beginning, yes, we're both together, delving into a sphere and sharing what's coming up from the unconscious. And as an analyst, we're acting as an alter ego.
Yeah.
Little by little, we pass that on to the analysand, because we're feeding him with knowledge. And we're feeding him with awareness of symbolism and awareness of his own unconscious processes. So once he's aware, he can claim it for himself. At the
What
beginning, he's innocent. He's like a novice.
But what kind of people are able to stay in analysis with you for a long period of time? Because we're living in a fast consuming society now, and people do not have patience to stay or anchor in long-term relationships. So what kind
Yes.
of people benefit from your long-term analysis?
Yes, well, fast food in therapies, analysis, and all these alternative measures, it's linked to the acceleration. And acceleration is motivated by anxiety. So there's an anxiety to get it, to grasp, to gather knowledge. But if knowledge is just knowledge, then it's just of the mind. If it's not knowledge through a deep process of experience and transformation, then it's superficial knowledge, whatever they learn. So it's linked to the anxiety. People don't know now, despite the fact that they've been living a transition period, they don't know that they are in the throes of passage, where there's a separation from what went before. Coronavirus created a huge rupture. Everything stopped. The whole world stopped. All of humanity stopped. It's an incredible experience of separation from what was running in this collective anxiety. It was just running, spinning, buzzing, and running very hard. So people had, because they were caught in the flow of that, felt they'd no time to stop, no time to do analysis, no time to stay for a long-term relationship. However, during this period, I have heard of amazing transformations in people's psyche. And things have taken another shape and form, like online work. Doing analysis online is something, Jung could never have conceived of. But maybe it's equivalent to something like telepathy. Maybe it's running on that level. But yes, people have been caught in anxiety. Anxiety is the barrier between going into the depths and taking it seriously. And people go the wrong way because they think the ego can just gather knowledge, gather different disciplines, gather techniques, gather methods. But it's only mind stuff if there isn't the deep transformative experience. Whoever you are, whatever you're teaching it out of yourself, not what you've learned in books and methods. It comes out of the self in you that has matured to a certain stage. That's what you're actually teaching with in analysis.
Yeah,
You're teaching because you've integrated,
yeah.
and the other is learning to integrate.
They always say the personality of the therapist is has more effective role in the benefit of patients more than what the school of therapy is. So the
Yeah,
personality of the therapist is more important than the school of therapy that the therapist belongs to.
Yes, but
So
Jung says too, the academic side of learning is not enough. You have to prove your own maturation process. Otherwise, it's not valid. It's not valid. I know many psychiatrists, they have never done analysis. So they have another approach. It's about diagnosis and pills. And we don't do that at all.
yeah, it's a,
We don't believe in pills. Yes, to calm anxiety, of course, in the first stages, everything is useful. But we believe in the process. And psychiatrists go to school and don't necessarily learn anything about that, a process in the psyche. They
no,
don't learn that the psyche is auto-regulating, that the psyche is has the power to transform, and that the psyche is the place of true healing. They don't learn that. But for us, it's just a very obvious fact. The healing that the person has to go through is within himself. We're just accompanying that with insight and true knowledge because we've been there.
you are living in Switzerland, and it's a country where people are feel very secure. They don't have anxiety for the future. They have secure feelings of security, being protected, and so on. But what happens there? Are the people prepared for the unexpected? What happens when something unexpected comes in Switzerland? What is the problem there? Are they prepared?
That's a very good question because the Swiss are very rational. Everything goes on ABCD. They are linear thinkers. They're perfectionists. So they love to be able to organize details as they should be organized. So all of that gives us security. However, it's not sufficient because the Swiss in Switzerland, we have huge existential fear and insecurity because nobody knows the future. You know, if you're leaning on a function that's totally rational and all of a sudden you have to look into a future that cannot be defined, then that creates huge anxiety. So facing the unexpected requires another function. And the other function is intuition. And of course, feeling and intuition. So it doesn't require thinking because we can't think. The coronavirus has been an extraordinary example of that. In Switzerland, they had to admit, we don't know. And in every single detail that was declared, the opposite was also declared.
Yes.
Like, this is safe, but we're not sure. This is safe, but this is not so safe. So they have not been able to use their superior function, their rationality, their thinking, their linear way of processing things. But that function is saturated. And I find that they have collectively adapted well to the unexpected.
Mm-hmm.
They have adapted well. Of course, there's always people who don't adapt, but they have adapted well, and they've had to bring up other functions in the psyche feeling. Like neighbors have to take care of neighbors. If not, lonely people in flats in the middle of a town, they will die. If people don't come and knock on the door and say, can we help you with your shopping? Can we help you in any way? Can we just bring you some company every day? While I live in my village, I have more contact than ever with the people around me. So they've had to bring in a feeling function, which they had no time to bring in before because everything was such extraordinary stress. There was such extraordinary collective stress. So yes, we have to adapt to the unexpected. And that's a huge challenge. You are right, yes. How do we adapt to the unexpected? It's unexpected. It's unknown. And
Mhm.
there's only one single security possible, and that's within oneself.
Yes.
And within oneself, you can ride any wave that comes if you've got that alignment. And Jung promises that alignment, but we have to contact the unconscious. You see, coronavirus is an expression of a collective unconscious revolt. It's
Yes.
a collective unconscious nightmare. And the polarity is life and death, because corona promises death. And for many, she's promising reorientation and rebirth.
You know, in the Thousand and One Night fairy tales, there are these genies. You know, you cannot see them, but they can be all around. So it's the virus is like the genie that came out of the lamp. You know, and it's
Exactly.
also
Yes, yes. Totally invisible.
it's invisible and it's uncontrollable, and you don't
Uh-huh.
know where it is.
It's chaotic.
It's chaotic, and it is. You say that it's the revolt of the unconscious. That this virus is this? Do you call it the shadow of the humanity?
Yes,
Is
it's
this
part of
virus?
the shadow archetype, of course. Mhm. Um, like psyche can produce a nightmare when the ego has a wrong attitude, when the ego has taken a wrong direction. Mother Nature is linked to man's collective unconscious, and Mother Nature too can produce a nightmare. So this virus is a nightmare for many. I know many people have died not only of corona, but many people who have died of other things at the same time. So the death archetype is roaming and threatening, and it's an oppositional stance coming from Mother Nature. And we should claim it as our own. We should claim it as our responsibility. If we fed our own collective unconscious uh, with feeling and another function, then we would be taking care of nature. But man's attitude to nature is totally is very sick. Man's global attitude to nature is sick, and many people are shouting and raising their voices about that. But we have to correct the big situations. I mean, I saw a picture of 40,000 baby cows in boxes in China, and it's unbearable. And then Dyson Meat in America, they have the same kind of situation. It's unbearable. We don't need uh, that at all. We can live without it. But yes, man's attitude to nature is sick, so nature will revolt. And nature will win because she's the stronger.
You always
She's,
say the man needs nature, but the nature does not need man.
nature doesn't need man, no. We only have to look at what's happening, you know, the deer walking down the streets of Paris. Um, and wild boar walking down the streets of Paris, and the stags are taking up their residence in the parks of London. So this is happening all over the world, and everybody is rejoicing because it's beautiful to see.
Uh-huh.
So nature can take over very quickly, but will we let her?
Yes, the dolphins came to the canals of Venice. You know, the dolphins were swimming in Venice.
The
Uh,
dolphins, pardon?
were swimming in Venice in Italy.
In
You
Venice, yes,
know,
yes. Yes, the dolphins came back to very putrid waters. You know, in Venice, it was very hard to walk down the canal because of the stench.
uh-huh.
And now everything's clean, the air's clean, and the dolphins are swimming there. It's beautiful. It has happened very quickly. But
Yes.
why do we bring pack boats into the port of Venice with 6,000 people aboard? It's not acceptable. It's not acceptable.
I
Of
want to ask you this. when the anxiety is too much, a lot of people try to soothe themselves via alcohol or drugs, and they become addicted. So, is this also a problem in Switzerland? Is there alcoholism or drug addiction increasing due to the increase in the anxiety for the future?
Yes, drugs have been more complicated to access during this time of rupture with coronavirus. So there is a program to distribute to real addicts what they need, because they're not expected to be able to stop. But I would say alcohol definitely is on the rise. Um, but alcohol is a repetitive, compulsive reaction that doesn't work and that doesn't resolve anything. It can be alcohol, it can be food. You know, we have joke comics about before Corona, you walk in your house through the door, and after Corona, you can't get out the door. You have to break the door down because people get too too obese because they can't get out of their houses anymore. So yes, addiction can be food, it can be alcohol, it can be drugs, but any addiction is a compulsive response to anxiety that doesn't work. And it's the futility of addiction. It's the despair at the core of addiction. And of course, the gateway through is through despair, not to repress it, but go through it
Yeah.
consciously. I mean, you may as well go through it. Maybe it's hell, but hell for a time. And it's not hell for the rest of your life, like addiction that repeats and repeats and repeats and gets nowhere. That's
Marie-Louise
hell.
from France, Marie-Louise from France was saying that you have to burn in the hell until the last evil element in you is burned.
Yes. I
Yeah.
hope she practiced what she preached.
That's how she preached. So she was advising to sit in the hell until the last evil element is burned down.
I hope she practiced what she preached.
Yeah.
I know she's in heaven now, so we can say that. Yes, it's going through the ring and not repressing it, because it will nag from within until it's appeased, whatever it is, whatever it's about. Despair is the gateway. Despair is at the core of the ego. And despair is the gateway through the ego and out the other side. And what is out the other side is the gift of the unconscious. You see, our efforts are rewarded in this life, but we don't know that. We're not taught. Our efforts are rewarded. Our participation has results, produces results. It's an equation.
It's karma, isn't it? It's when you do something good, then it gives you back. The good things come back.
Yes, it's participation.
Participation. Yeah.
It's karma. It's participation in karma.
Mhm.
And then maybe you're really faced with the unexpected, but the unexpected can be great,
Yes.
not always terrible.
Yes. Exactly.
The unexpected can be so wonderful. You know, when I was going to the Jung Institute in Zurich, I got my letter from the selection committee accepting me. They said, now you have to, it was the day of my birthday actually, it was July 18th when I got the letter. And I was sitting in my living room, and they said, but you have to enter now in the winter semester, or you'd have to go through the whole application again. So I was sitting there holding the letter, and I was saying to myself, now how am I going to pay for this institute? Because the institute was expensive.
Yes.
And whilst I was thinking about that with the letter in my hand, lightning struck the house, and it blew all the electric system. And the insurance came next day and gave me 35,000 francs. And the local insurance man came and repaired it for 1,000 francs.
Really.
So the unexpected was wonderful, and it was God sent, and it meant to be.
Nice.
and it was a synchronicity. And I will always, always, always remember that moment when I was reading the letter and lightning struck and the unexpected happened.
Yes, the angels were with you.
The angels were there, yes. So the unexpected can be wonderful.
Yeah.
The unexpected can be great. You see, we don't have positive projection, we've only negative projection. We think the unexpected is terrifying, that it's only darkness that can come. That's not true. The unexpected can be great, can be wonderful.
You know, in Turkey and also maybe in the world, when you attack when what has been indoctrinated or what has been memorized by the person, the people become very aggressive. So if you spoil the indoctrination, the people become very aggressive.
Oh, it's based on fear indoctrination.
Yeah. So everything should be like how they are have memorized things, how they have been indoctrinated. If there's something different, then they become very aggressive.
Yes, they're afraid.
They're afraid.
Their aggression is based on fear because if you take their belief system away, what's left? Nothing. The void. And they're terrified of that. So they're hanging on to belief systems that don't resolve their anxiety because they're afraid of anything other, anything new. Whereas if they're free, they can englobe everything, their own belief system, other belief systems. Everything comes down to one in the end, whatever it's about. But anxiety, if you think all this aggressiveness is fear based, absolutely terrified that you would take their belief system away from them. At the same time, the belief system doesn't work because as soon as you touch the button, they get aggressive and terrified.
Hmm.
So it's always functioning. Well, you know, you're a refined mind, so you have to function in that sphere.
Yeah.
Yeah, of thinkers, people who think. Birds of a feather flock together, we say in English.
Hmm.
So we need that flock of birds that flock with us, that
Hmm.
fly with us. It's very important for our own food. But you have also dealt with amazing cases from the backwater of Anatolia, from the backwater of the country of Turkey, from the backwaters of the world. And you have done such amazing work. And I've always been so astonished, so struck by that exceptional capacity you have to enter into any level. I mean, I've met autistic boy with you. I've met who touched a donkey for the first time in his life and smiled. It was just incredible.
Yes,
You've taken on cases that doctors and clinics would not take on, and have had huge successes. So you can't get stuck with the aggressive, indoctrinated people because you're a person who can function on any level,
exactly.
and you have to know that sphere. It's a miracle that you're there for them in Turkey because they need that alternative. Your participation participates in the collective unconscious. We don't know it or see it or feel it, but it's there. That's for sure. I promise you.
And you see, the world changes so fast that you have to adapt the change if you want to continue your work. So this online work is now something we must adapt because people can no longer travel so freely anymore and can come to you and work with you face to face or do activities with you. So I saw this a few years ago because of this unexpected terrorist activities and so on. People were afraid of coming and going, and so I just started developing online work, and now we have to give more energy to this, and I think we have to do something together too. We have to make an analytical group therapy together online
Mhm.
and open to the whole world and whoever wants to come, can join us in Zoom, and we meet regularly, and
Yes,
and it should be open to anybody with any problems, because
yes,
you also have a brilliant ability to work with schizophrenic people, for example. Not very many analysts can stand working with psychotic people, but you have that ability.
yes. Well, Jung gave me the key because within schizophrenia there's fragmentation. So when you see the fragmentation, it's like the black hole in the cosmos. The black hole in the cosmos, we always thought it was empty, there's nothing in there. But in fact, there are elements within that make unexpected associations and link together. And then matter is produced in the black hole. And the schizophrenic psyche is the same. Everything's fragmented. There are bits and pieces all over the place. But if you can just get two bits to join together, then you can get an accumulation of matter in the psyche. Schizophrenic needs matter in his psyche. The psyche split to bits. I had a nurse in one of my courses on spontaneous drawing, and she brought the drawings of 5 schizophrenics. And we could see immediately there was only one case that was schizophrenic, truly schizophrenic. The other 4 were not, because the symbolism and the structure in the drawings was perfectly clear that it was present. There was no fragmentation. But there was one case of true fragmentation. And yes, I have worked in the past with fragmentation. I have asked God to take over and that it not be me anymore. But I believe in everybody. Everybody has a self. Everybody has that at the core that can coagulate. I believe in that capacity to coagulate, like in alchemy,
Yes.
coagulatio. That's the level that schizophrenics have to meet. I did have a man who was in a room in Paris for 8 years in the dark and never went out. And of course, the psyche was in bits. But it was a very shamanic process that he lived. And the first thing he ever said to me was, he sat down in front of me. He'd seen 5 psychiatrists, and it was a psychiatrist who sent them to me. And he said to me, my soul is way out there. And I could feel that feeling. When your soul is way out there, what's left? Nothing but this terribly intense void of despair. Talking about. And when I said that, I could see that something began to coagulate.
Mm,
And he lived a beautiful process. And
great.
of course, he had a very brilliant mind, that too, a brilliant mind that can place itself anywhere, that can activate fragmentation too. But he learned very quickly. He read all the volumes of Jung, and
And
he
you also had a lot of research and experience with authentic shamans in Arctic Pole, the Eskimo shamans in Brazil, in Cambodia, in Yakutia, in Altai. Um, how can we benefit as modern individuals from these ancient shamanic practices with the true shamans? What can we gain from them? What
the
can we
first
learn from them?
concept I learned in shamanism is that you have to stop looking and see. And the shaman sees. He sees this world and the other at the same time. And we all have the capacity to do that, but we have no idea that we have. We've all lost that. Shaman is a mediator. He's a mediator between the sphere and the other. So people use practices, they tap on drums and they use practices and they learn rituals. But if you can't get that totalized perception of here and there at the same time, then I don't think that you're a real shaman. I've met a real shaman, for example, in the mountains of Laos, a little man standing in front of his bamboo hut, and my guide said, "Is there any, do you know where we find a shaman?" He said, "I'm the shaman." He was just waiting for us at the door. But he was a man who immediately said, "I can see your soul." And he could really see your soul. And my guide was so astonished that he just fell to bits. He couldn't believe that this could exist.
Mhm.
And this man, Samit Singh, not only saw his soul, but he did a soul reading. He did for both of us. He was also a man who, during our time there, at one time he asked us to leave. And he called us back at 1:30 or something. And it was amazing. There are no clocks there. He has no watches. He's never had a watch. But exactly at 1:30 on the dot, he was at his door again. It was amazing. And he had become a woman, because the shaman integrates his feminine totally. So he's masculine and feminine. And he can also use his feminine side. So a shaman aims at totality, just like Jung. Jung wants us to integrate the anima, but we haven't even integrated the anima mundi, the anima of the world. But if we integrate the anima, we also integrate the anima of the world, the spirit, the soul of the world. So a shaman is a very special person. In all my travels, I have met a few real shamans. A shaman is also elected by nature. Nature always has an extraordinary other response to a shaman. For example, I met Manise in the Arctic Circle. I was in the highest community on the planet, in the Arctic Circle. Manise was 16, but he had been out in the ice in the dark, and he had fallen. The ice floe that he was on, the ledge broke, and he fell into the ocean. And his brother couldn't help him to get out. So his brother ran back to the village, and it took him 6 hours to come back with the village men and find the place again where Manise was. And when they pulled him out of the water, he was totally untouched. Because even an Eskimo in freezing waters has a certain life expectancy, a certain limit that he can survive. So it was immediately recognized that Mother Nature had a different response to him, that she honored him. And of course, he honored her. So in that collaboration, he was saved. There was also another incident. Manise came up to here on me. He was about 5 foot something. He was very small. And one night he was also out on the ice in the dark, and he killed a polar bear single-handed with his knife. And that is considered totally impossible. Any Eskimo will recognize, any Inuit will recognize. So it was perfectly clear that Manise was honored by Mother Nature, so men must honor him too. And he was elected shaman, and he was 16 years old. But he had the power. Manise had the power in his eyes. You wouldn't lie to Manise, you wouldn't treat him badly, you wouldn't cheat on him, that's for sure, because he did definitely have power. So yes, I have met shamans. I worked with Castaneda once upon a time. Castaneda taught the precepts. He wasn't a healer. Manise was a healer. Samit Singh was a healer. Castaneda taught the precepts, the concepts of shamanism. You learn to see, not to look. You get off the carousel. You get off the spin. You get off the plate of life. You enter into your double, and you get to know it. So you enter into your shadow. Your shadow is not negative. It's also positive. In entering into the shadow, in Castaneda's sphere, you can do things that you can't do in your normal ego personality. So Castaneda was all about concepts. And Samit Singh was a healer. And when you say he was a healer, so shamans can be teachers or healers, but Mother Nature has a special reaction to a true shaman. He's a mediator between the sphere and the divine.
And you were saying that the shaman is able to pass the vortex and come back.
That's right.
Maybe you can say something about this.
Yes, well, when you go into altered states of consciousness, what happens is that there's the very first stage of altered states of consciousness is what we call opentics. These are optical things happening. So within you see spirals and zigzags and sparks, things happening inside in the psyche. And then after that phase, what the mind tries to do, if you see a zigzag, is to construe. The mind wants to construe, wants to put that zigzag into a form. So the mind might call it a snake, for example. So you have the first phase, optentics, and you have the construal, where you want the mind attempts to construe, and it's only very relative, its capacity to construe. And then you move gradually into a phase where everything is spinning in a very powerful, energetic field. And that's the point where most people get scared and run away. But actually, that's the point where you go through. You go into the core of the hurricane and you stand there until something else happens, until psyche shifts. And in the core of the hurricane, like in the core of any hurricane, there's total calm, total peace. And that's the stage of vision. So if you can get through the vortex, you come to the sphere of vision. Every shaman knows about that. Every true shaman knows about that.
And this Eskimo shaman, you wrote a book, and we want to translate it into Turkish and publish it in Turkey.
Thank you so much. You're so
You're going
amazing.
to send us the text.
I can send you the text, yes,
We'll
today.
start the translation.
Sorry?
We will start translating it immediately.
Yes, you're amazing. Yes, thank you so much. That's very exciting. I think Turkey is a good place too, because in Turkey, there's a collective unconscious that knows about shamanism. They know about genies and entities in the other spheres that function and influence life. So I think my book would be very compatible with the collective unconscious in Turkey. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you, as always.
Yes. And I thank you very much for this beautiful program that you contributed for our channel, Soul Science School YouTube channel. And we will disseminate this film to the whole world, and we will make you the new virus of the world. We will make a pandemic of Patricia Elwood pandemic. We'll send this film all over the world.
Well, I'm just a transmitter, a channel, an object in the middle. But someone asked me the other day what I think Jung is saying about the present situation. I said Jung's clapping his hands in the sky because he's so pleased that man is at last challenged to stop and think about the way he lives, and that man now has to hold the tension of the opposites as Jung prescribed. And this is his task. So if Jung joins the pandemic and all he ever said is spread all over the world, that would be wonderful. The world would be truly, truly transformed. And all the shamans of the earth would clap too.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Murat. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, Seamus. I love him dearly too. Take care.
Take care.
I'm very impressed by his books. I must come and look through his bookshelves. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.